What's up, Jesse?
Hey man, big fan. I watched Wounded Fawn last night. Holy shit. That was something else. First I want to know, how did you get involved with the project?
Travis Stevens, the director, DM'd me on Twitter and said, "Hey, I think you'd be great for this." And I was like, "Hell yes, I want to read it." It's not often I get offered a role. Certainly not like this. I read it and I said, "This is genius." I said, "I have to do it." And so it was pretty quick how it happened. It was already funded, already ready to go. I read it and said, "Yes. When can I get on a plane?"
Well, when reading the script, were there any moments where you wondered how it would actually work on screen? There's a lot of interesting moments, and myself, I have a production background, and I was just kind of curious as the how you would transition some of those moments from paper to film. So what was that like?
Man, I'm trying to think of if there was a specific bit of prose or description that I read, whereas especially as a filmmaker, I was like, how the hell is he going to do that? My guess would be anything having to do with the Furies. And the first moment he sees the kind of like rising fabric or spectral apparition representative of the girls in the woods, there was a piece of me that was like, how is he going to do it? But I also knew that Travis was, because he's also sent this beautiful visual deck along with the script. I had the sense he was going to take this kind of Raimi-esque approach to it, just in terms of like the guerrilla filmmaking of it all and do a lot in camera. And so I had a few ideas and was hinted at a few techniques, and that only excited me all the more because it's a garage band kind of effort. It's like real filmmaking, in camera, practical stuff, and that's just the stuff I think Travis and I absolutely love, and why I was thrilled to be a part of it.
And you mentioned Raimi. Obviously, the other obvious comparison is Patrick Bateman. But I got a bit of Mark Duplass creep vibe,
Love.
which
uh,
yeah, me too. I love them both, and they're like my go-to recommendations as far as like something that maybe you haven't seen. And I loved your performance, but I definitely did see similarities between the two. Were there any particular performances or characters that inspired you?
I didn't really draw from character. I was trying to draw from a very specific type of dude that I know in my life, like a mansplaining, sort of know-it-all, egocentric kind of a not even an art world guy, but just like just a just that sort of toxic explainer, a narcissistic type that I hadn't really played quite before, not even in Scare Me, my first kind of swing playing that character. So it was less about what I'd seen before, but there was a bit of Mike Nichols's voice in my head. He was one of my masterclass teachers. I went to acting school, and he was one of the teachers who'd come in weekly when he wasn't shooting. Back then, it was Angels in America, and he was talking about just how basically the idea that you don't play scary, and then if it's just sort of you play something sort of matter of factly, that it becomes all the more chilling. And so I tried not to play too much into portraying a serial killer. It was more just like, why don't I just play this like through and through, like everything is matter of fact, and grounded in reality, because the circumstances are so extravagant. So hopefully that's what people are responding to.
Yeah, I like that answer. And I've seen interviews of yours throughout the years. Obviously, I remember you from College Humor, Dorkly, and you seem like a decent enough guy. Is it difficult to get in that headspace or the mind of Bruce, if you will?
It's not too difficult. No, I think because I grew up on horror. I grew up on God, um seeing all kinds of shady characters in movies, from Popcorn to the Nightmare on Elm Street series, from like weird coaches and weird dads and weird uncle characters and evil jocks and characters throughout the years, and Stephen King stories, and always kind of talking to myself like a whole array of the characters that I watched growing up, watching decimate other human beings or others. Even in Killer Clowns from Outer Space, there are unsavory characters kind of left and right. So I think there was just a part of Bruce that already existed in my brain that I was already sort of like pseudo impersonating or wanted to bring out. I was just always excited, especially as a more, comedically known actor, to play dark. So it wasn't hard. It was fun. I don't know what that says about me. But super, super fun to do, especially because of, the bombastic kind of Ash-like nature of where, where the character goes.
Yeah, and I want to jump back to the script a little bit here and I don't want to spoil it because I think that it's one of the better moments in the film. But what kind of direction was given by Stevens with the credit scene, or was that something that was written in the script as how long that was going to go on, or was that something that kind of came about just being on set?
I think if I'm getting this correct, you'd have to ask Travis. I was because we were doing an interview earlier and I couldn't quite remember myself if it was a decision in the moment where we were losing light and we were like, hey, what if we just went for it and you just did this as opposed to going in and getting coverage in different angles and this thing that's occurring. Um, it wasn't in the script other than that there was this specific action.
Yeah.
So in the moment when he was like, let's do it in one take from this angle, how do you feel about it? I think all of us were like, fuck yeah, especially too because film cartridges, a film roll is about 11 minutes. And so hey, do you want to do this for the full run? What if we spend a whole cartridge on this? And I mean, I was certainly stoked. I know Sarah was down. And mainly because again, as Travis put it, we're making art. Like, your movies, especially indie movies, they have to make a splash. There has to be a moment people kind of talk about. You see this with Terrifier 2. It's like, oh, you got to go see it. Maybe you'll barf, or
Yeah.
maybe you'll be kind of floored. And that was one of those moments. But I didn't know, no, going into it that we were going to arrive that day and do it in one. But I told him from the get go, I said, look, I'm super down for anything. I'm very malleable. I want to be for other directors, the kind of actor that I want to direct. Like, tell me what to do. Like,
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of becoming his signature too. Like that final scene of his films are like probably the most talked about. They kind of overshadow the journey, if you will. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty cool decision, and I enjoyed it that much more because of which. I also want to mention Blood Relatives. The road trip dramedy that you produced. And it as well will be exclusively on Shudder. What can you tell about us about that project? And then also Noah Segan. I'm so glad he's finally like getting the notoriety that he's deserved. I've been a big fan of his since Brick. So
yeah.
what can you say about that project?
Blood Relatives it's a very different movie from Wounded Fawn. It's a daddy-daughter vampire road trip movie. It's inspired by movies like Paper Moon and Ganja and Hess. Very, very much an independent, very much a sub $1 million film and Shutter. From the time we got financing until release, it was all within a year. I mean, we were shooting this time last year in Taylor, Texas. And it's essentially about it's based on Noah's experience or drawn from or inspired by his experience of becoming a father after being like Mr. like, independent film cool guy for so long and then suddenly having kids and what that experience is like. And so it's a really sweet bloody vampire film, but what I love about it is that it's intimate. It's a lot of long sort of dialogue driven scenes between these two great characters. And as a producer, what I was able to do, I told Noah, I was like, you want me to help you produce and do like the scare me thing? Your kind of venture into doing the triple threat thing. I said, I'm not a paperwork producer, but I'm a connector. I love to help cast. I'll help you sort of, direct when you're in scenes from the monitor, offer suggestions and, ways to get out of trouble and coverage and stuff like that. What I loved offering, I think most of all, was Victoria Morales as a candidate to play his daughter Jane. I met her on the set of Plan B, which is an amazing Hulu film directed by my friend Natalie Morales. And when Victoria agreed to do it, and took the meeting with Noah and her hit it off like gangbusters. We all knew we were in for something special. So it's just so cool that Blood Relatives and Wounded Fawn are coming out, a week apart on Shudder. It's a pretty exciting thing that hasn't quite sunk in that I'm starring in one and that I cameo in another, and it's very different. And then I have, have these kind of different involvements in it, but it's exactly that. I think 14-year-old Josh would be like, holy shit, like you're doing everything you've ever wanted to do, and 39-year-old Josh is pretty stoked too.
Cool, man. Yeah. As we wrap up here, it is pretty cool that it's completely different voices. And, speaking of voice, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention yours. Amazing Eye in Werewolves Within, and Scare Me was everything to me. Like I adore that film. I don't know. It was like one of those films that like it was almost kind of like meant for me. I'm sure you get told that a lot, but I have to ask about Darla, your graphic novel. Coming in 2023. What can you do? What can you tell us about that? What can you say to get us excited?
Darla is about an irritable small town woman who, in her feeling more and more isolated from the world, starts fantasizing this creature in her house who tells her to do things. And so what excites me about Darla is that it's sort of an homage to Stephen King's Derry. It's like a little bit Dead Zone. It's a little bit Babadook, but it feels like a comic book homage to like HBO's Tales from the Crypt for me. It's like everything I loved about that kind of like tone and style. It's wicked and blackly funny, I hope. But it goes there. It's pretty twisted. And that really excites me that people are going to be able to see that. Now, just as a comic book fan, a graphic novel fan, especially of books like Nick Dranazo's Beverly, the books that read like a movie, that's a really exciting medium to me. I've always been a fan of comic books and graphic novels, but to get into that space is super cool. And the illustrator Brianna Tippett is a genius. So I hope people dig it. I'm very, very curious to see what people make of it.
Excellent. Yeah. Horror is, it's like standing out right now. So it's definitely the perfect time to get it out there. Before we go, I have to say again, I appreciate your time. I've wanted to interview you for so long. I feel like I've watched you work, for a while. And here at CineDump, we let the doers know how they're doing. And you, sir, are doing just fine. Again, keep creating and we will keep tuning in. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate that.
No problem. Have a good day, guys.